Hello and welcome to our Edutrips demonstration on the Edutrips dashboard. This is the Edutrips dashboard that is accessible to all users using Edutrips. So what can we see? We've got my profile. So as a user, I can select when I receive notification about the different stages of a trip. I can change my password. And I can also include relevant information that's going to be accessible to my colleagues on information such as first aid qualifications or experience and qualifications in relation to running trips. It's also useful to have expiry dates, so we know that when those really important qualifications are coming up for renewal. I've also got my colleagues' contact details in here, which is obviously useful when you're away on a trip, because it means that you've got instant access to these key contacts, specifically in relation to trip organisers. I'm just going to go back to the Trip Manager dashboard by clicking Previous. And here we've got a place to store all our trip documents. So this is a really useful repository because it helps you to keep everything in one place. And these are all the general documents that you'd want everybody to have access to within your school and college, such as a general risk assessment, or your health and safety policy, or even a list of the relevant legislation. It's also got a useful messaging system, so I can see when a trip has been updated and when I need to authorise a trip. So I can simply click on the buttons to authorise it, and it will go to the person that needs to authorise it. Going back to the Trip Manager again, this is where I plan all my trips. I can simply start a new trip by clicking this button here. This will give me a list of options of the different types of trips that I might want to run, ranging from a very basic, low-level, low-risk trip, such as a trip to a museum, where minimum fields will be completed because it's so quick and easy to organise. However, for the more adventurous activities, such as an overseas residential adventurous activities trip, there is more risk involved, and so therefore there are more criteria that you need to take into consideration when planning your trip. And these particular stages of a trip are covered by BS 8848, the British standard for organising trips safely overseas. But going back to my dashboard, this shows me all of the trips that are being run at this given time within my school or college. It gives me an instant dashboard on the current status of every single trip by using this useful little dashboard. And when you hover over it, it gives you a bit more information about the status. And I can then click on the trip and have a look and see where we're at with it. So if I click here, I can see we're just at the stage of entering the school emergency contact information for that particular trip at that given time. We've also got a useful manual, which is compliant to BS 8848, which is really handy for new staff, as it's useful as part of an induction. We can also update individual documents associated with the trip if we like. And finally, this is where we can archive our trips. So as soon as the trip has been completed, it can be archived here. This means that if you run the same type of trip week after week or month after month or year on year, you can then easily and quickly reuse and reinstate that trip, which means that it saves hours and hours of time going through and finding various documents that you need. Of course, the student information will be removed because you need to identify the risk associated with the students on that particular trip at that time. And of course, we've got our training videos, which are really useful to access whenever you need them. Okay, so that's it. That's how simple and easy the Edutrips Trip Manager dashboard is. For further information on how to plan a trip, Going into this function here, please see our demonstration on trip planning with Edutrips. Thank you for listening.